friends. Welcome to Dads and Daddies, a podcast about the lives and times of adult gay men in the here and now. I am Brian Ruben Sowers, the dad.
And I am Judson Morrow, the daddy. Hey, everybody.
Oh, my God.
Welcome to our first live show.
I'm like, this is so surreal. Thank you to Daniel Nardicio, to Taylor, to Keaton, to Antonio, to Joao, everyone here. Daniel has become our fairy godfather. He is the most amazing, generous, wonderful man. We reached out to him pretty early on. I think Daniel was our second guest on the podcast. And I've been a fan of Daniel's work in the community for years and years and years, and just really knew that I wanted him as a guest on the podcast and reached out, like I said, pretty early on, and he was an incredible guest. We recorded that episode on Fire Island out of the Belvedere Hotel, and ever since, he's just been coming to us with ideas to do live shows. He sends us ideas for guests. You're pretty soon going to meet one of the guests that Daniel introduced us to. So anyway, I just want to start by thanking you, Daniel, because you are, like I said, our fairy godfather, and I love you very much.
This is how close we've gotten with him. He came to Brian's house for Shabbat dinner.
Yeah, yeah, and it was lovely, yes. He's met the kids. Wow, this is crazy. We're sitting up here in towels.
Yeah, I feel good about it. But to be fair, this is more dressed than I was at my last live performance.
Yes, this is true.
That's true. I went to a naked yoga retreat in Austin, Texas in May, and the talent show at a naked yoga retreat is also naked. So I did a 10-minute stand-up set with my dick out.
And you said you were more nervous about the jokes than the dick being out.
That's true.
Yeah. And it was amazing, of course.
Yeah, it went great.
Yeah. I hope this goes great, too. It's going to go great, right? Yeah, okay. I've been doing my best to, make sure I was okay with the shape that I'm in for tonight because of, sitting here like this.
You look awesome.
Thank you. But, then I discovered Nutella biscuits.
Okay.
I can't not eat. I literally order them 6 bags at a time from Amazon to make sure that we don't run out. And as soon as we're down to the last bag, I order the next set. So this is me with having worked out for several weeks and several bags of Nutella biscuits. When this airs on Tuesday, we're gonna, our episodes air Tuesday mornings. This will be our 26th episode to air, which means we've been doing this half a year, which is crazy. And it's the 26th on Tuesday, so it's going to air the 26th on the 26th.
I can't believe the time has gone by so quickly. And I didn't think that we would be doing a live show as quickly after launching as
I know, within the first 6 months.
But here we are.
Here we are. This is so exciting. You also had another exciting development this week, or an anniversary. Can we talk about your anniversary that you celebrated this week?
My gosh, yeah. And I have some friends here to help me celebrate it. On the 20th, I celebrated 7 years off of crystal meth.
That's amazing. I am so proud of you, so happy for you. How's it feel?
I mean, now I'm on weed, so it's really awkward. Just kidding. It feels amazing. There are so many things that I would not have in my life had I not gotten sober. I wouldn't have a job. I wouldn't have a husband. I wouldn't have a house. I wouldn't have this podcast. I wouldn't have friends. There's a lot to be thankful for. Yeah, it feels really good.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you very much. That day at work, I had a 9-hour meeting. It was 9 hours. It was 9 continuous hours of meeting at work. And I thought to myself, if I can detox from crystal meth, I can sit through this meeting.
And you did.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. You're here.
Thanks.
Last night we celebrated, I mentioned this, I think, on a recent episode that we were planning this, but we celebrated 9 years of my daughter's life. My eldest daughter is about to turn 9 this coming week on Monday. And we did it with a 17-plus hour slumber party that started at 5 o'clock last night and ended this morning a little bit after 10 o'clock. So that's what I'm coming into this with.
How'd it go?
It actually was amazing. We invited, so it was my daughter, she invited 6 friends. She also very graciously invited her younger sister, her almost 6-year-old younger sister. We asked the older one if she wanted the younger one to be sent off to her own sleepover or if she wanted her to stay for the party, and she was emphatic that she wanted her to stay, which was very sweet. And then there are a few boys in the class that...
Who slept over?
No. Who were very important to this certain group of friends. So the boys were invited from 5 to 7 for karaoke, pizza, and not cake because I'm raising a Brooklyner, so macarons. And
didn't know what they were till I was 34.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the boys were sent home, and then we recreated in real life this video game that my daughter and all of her friends are obsessed with, called Dress to Impress, which is a fashion runway experience. We told all the girls to come with 3 looks prepared. The themes were Fall Festival, Your Style, and Pajama Party, with the idea that we'd end on pajama party, so they would be in their pajamas. And then we had a secret or a surprise look, which was Baddies. And we supplied all the girls with a simple black dress that we bought on Temu for like $3 a dress, and then with accessories. And it was very, very sweet. They had 10 minutes in there, like my husband... that's my husband, Toby, by the way, for those who hear me talk about him for the last 25 weeks. That's Toby, whose life you know everything about. And Judson's husband, Bruce, is also here.
Hi, Bruce.
So now you can put those faces to those names. My husband, Toby, took this project on and created this incredible experience for the kids. We had this room hidden for the first part of the evening that we called the VIP room because that's what it's called in the game. He even contacted the creators of the game to get their logo design and imagery so that it was all authentic. It was really, really sweet, and the kids were amazing. And then finally at midnight, we had to go down and tell them to go to sleep. And one of my daughter's friends said, "Oh, it's okay, I'm going to nap tomorrow." And we said, "No, you go to sleep." No, but it was lovely. It went really well.
I mean, I think it's so cool that you did this for your kids, but to all my 80s babies and 90s kids out here, can we talk for a second? This slumber party is fucked up. Like the one he just described. Like slumber parties when we were kids was like, oh, bring a sleeping bag if you have one. We may have food. You're basically just gonna play video games in the basement and go to sleep when we turn off the lights.
Yeah.
Am I right? That's what slumber parties were like.
Know.
Kids are, I will say this. To me, having grown up in that environment, I'm like, damn, kids are spoiled. But now, your kids are so gracious. They're so cool. They're so sweet.
Thank you.
I had a lovely time dishing with your 9-year-old about the boys at the party.
Yeah.
I was like, tell me about the boys who are here. Are they cute? I mean, that's a weird question, I guess. To her.
I'm feeling so special tonight for so many reasons. The fact that you all are here is incredible, but there are a couple people in the audience who are moms at my kids' school.
Yeah, women at Redeye.
Which is really kind of amazing. I told a story on a recent episode about a first grader in my younger kids' class who mistakenly told her class that her parents had voted for Trump. She's here. She did not vote for Trump, but she's here. But sitting beside her is the mom of the boy who, all the girls at this party last night are, all head over heels for. But he changes his mind as to who he has a crush on, who he has a crush on, with the wind. And the girls all take it all so seriously. And I'm like, I promise you he does not. I promise you. But it's very sweet. And from what I understand from the moms, the boys who attended the party last night put way more thought and energy into their outfits than any of the girls did. It was very sweet.
Oh, wait, the boys were there for the fashion show?
No, just the outfits they were going to show up in.
Okay, got it.
It was very sweet. So that's what I'm coming into tonight with.
Thank you all for being here. This is really amazing.
I love giving reviews.
Get ready.
Well, I had a very gay week. We saw a lot of entertainment this week. But I wanted to explain, because I realized I've never actually explained this on the pod, that like I don't like much. And so because like, you know, I'm 50.
I think people know that about you without having to explain.
Well, those who know me know that. But so when I do like something, I go all in. I mean, you know, I have an obsessive personality. You've seen my house, you've seen my office. Like, I surround myself with the things I love. And so when I'm excited about something, I get really excited, and that's why I like to give these reviews on the podcast. So I have 3 things I want to talk to you about.
Okay.
All right.
Go.
Have you seen Anora?
I have not, but I have had it recommended to me.
Have you guys seen Anora? Yeah. Oh my God. Do you know? So you know of it?
I do know of it. Actually, the people who recommended it to me are here in the audience.
Yeah. So it won the Palme d'Or at Cannes this year. It's written, directed, and edited entirely by Sean Baker, who is a filmmaker who's long championed the rights of sex workers. He feels sex work should be legal and unregulated. I went in completely blind. I had no idea what it was about. I just knew that it was supposed to be good. And Toby and I like to have a night out, so we went to go see it. So I'm not going to say anything more than it's a movie about a sex worker in Brooklyn, played by the wonderful Mikey Madison. In fact, it's filmed like largely in our backyard. It was crazy. Like it was all Brighton Beach and Coney Island. So we live like pretty deep into Brooklyn, and so like especially with kids, we spent a lot of time in Coney Island. And they even filmed, we had lunch that day, by total coincidence, at the Parkview Diner, and there's a whole scene at the Parkview Diner. Anyway, it's like, if you haven't seen it, or it seems like everybody in the room with me has, but if you're listening to the podcast and have not seen it, you know, it is like one part edge of your seat thriller, one part like laugh out loud comedy, and one part like tragic story of a sex worker. But it's really wonderful. And like I said, I had no idea what it was going in. And then on the subway ride home, I just looked it up online, and I saw that Variety, as of right now, granted it's only November, has it picked as like their predictions for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actress, Best Original Screenplay for the Oscars. So anyway, go see Anora.
I'm gonna throw in a review.
Into
your triple. This show will be gone by the time this episode airs. This is all I want to tell you that I learned. The term "cuntlapper," which was 1930s queer New York for lesbian.
Wow.
Let's make this happen.
Let's bring it back. Wait, where did you learn this?
At the show that Bruce and I saw on Thursday.
And you don't want to give...
Sex Variants. It's about a book.
It was
about a book that was written in 1941. It was 80 interviews, medical exams. For anyone that thinks that they're being interesting as like the first queer person in New York City, I have news for you. It's not any of you. It's not any of us. It's been around forever. And
there's music,
specifically
right?
Yeah.
I feel like Stephen Trask, who co-wrote Hedwig, is part of that.
They sing and dance in it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, I look at my note about Anora. You will love it, Judson.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, you should.
I'll go see it.
Yeah. This next one is pretty obvious at this point. Toby and I felt lucky that we saw an early screening on Monday, but of course it's open now. But so don't take away my gay card, but I'm a gay who has never liked Wicked before. Good for you. Thank you.
That was a good for you from the audience.
I was Team Avenue Q that year. But we saw the movie, and it is. I walked away saying it's a perfect movie. I loved it so much. I said this after In the Heights also. I want John M. Chu to direct all the movie musicals. But I feel like it's 100 times better than it is on stage. He's totally found a way for it to completely fulfill its potential. So I highly recommend Wicked. We're taking the kids tomorrow. I can't wait.
They also say "cuntlapper" a lot in Wicked.
They actually do. And then this is a callback to an earlier episode where we were talking about things coming up this season, and I got in trouble, if you recall, because I was predicting. I'm talking about Death Becomes Her now. Death Becomes Her on Broadway. Saw it on Wednesday, and a number of episodes ago, I predicted that it would be fun, and that in terms of Michelle Williams, it would be cool to be in the room with her. And then a listener contacted us, very upset, and I made an apology episodes later about what I had said about Michelle Williams. I take the apology back, but besides that, it's an incredible show. So much fun. Michelle looks amazing. Michelle looks amazing. But everything else about it is so much fun, so fabulous. And this is another one, don't take away my gay card, but like, that movie came out when I was like, I think, a sophomore in college.
The musical, you mean? The musical came out?
No, the movie, Death Becomes Her.
Oh, Death Becomes Her. Sorry, I'm not even listening. We moved on to the third review, and I was
yeah.
So the movie Death Becomes Her came out when you were
when
in
I was
college.
like going into my sophomore year, and again, like I had just come out of the closet. I was taking myself very seriously. I didn't quite get it. I mean, I've since seen it again and like kind of gotten the camp more, but I'm still not like one of those gays who like, it's in my kind of canon, but the show is fabulous. And Jennifer Simard and Megan Hilty and Chris Sieber are all incredible. Like I said, Michelle Williams looks great, and the costumes are incredible. The sets are incredible. The special effects are really fun, and I highly recommend that.
You should rewatch the movie. It's very good. It's available on.
I watched it again. When did we watch it? Not that long ago. It's good.
It's free with ads.
It's free with ads on YouTube.
Free with ads on YouTube. There you go. Thank you.
All right, that's all I've got.
Thank you very much. Let's take a little break and have our guest up.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a little break. It's literally going to be 15 seconds while I drink some water. And we'll bring our guest, David Lauterstein, up.
Welcome back. David Lauterstein is among the most influential forces in queer culture. Celebrated as an unapologetic champion for sex positivity since co-founding the iconic Nasty Pig fashion brand in 1994, celebrating its 30th anniversary this year. As its CEO, he has been honored for his trailblazing entrepreneurship, his philanthropic efforts supporting homeless queer youth, and by the White House for his decades of public health advocacy. A formally trained poet and house music producer, Lauterstein resides in New York City with his husband and Nasty Pig co-founder, Frederick Kearney, also here tonight. His amazing, wonderful, inspirational, super sexy, and deeply gut-wrenching memoir, Sodomy Gods, is out now. We both read it, loved it. Highly recommend it to all of you. Please welcome David Lauterstein.
Hello.
Hi, David.
Hello. Am I close enough to this thing?
Yeah,
Yes,
you sound great.
I think you're great.
I just want to say this, since you're sitting right next to me. You're so hot in person. You're so hot in person. And I say that juxtaposed against the fact that we have, in fact, chatted on Grindr. We've never been able to connect. The interest was always there. This is not how I envisioned getting together with you. But
And yet here we are.
and we are so happy to have you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you coming.
Yeah. I love the book so much, and you and I we're close in age. We came out within a couple of years of each other. We moved to the city within a few years of each other. So it was like very kind of cool and felt like this like time capsule to me to like be back on like 22nd and 8th in Chelsea and to be back at the Big Cup and at the Roxy. I sadly personally never made it to Sound Factory, but you really made, I was there in the book. It was so exciting to be part of this friend circle that was like Kevin Aviance and, Junior Vasquez and your friend Manfred, Terry Migler. And anyway, it's a super cool book. But what I could most relate to is that, like Fred, I also spilled my drink on one of my first dates with my husband. I actually spilled my drink on like 3 of my first dates with my husband, which was very bizarre. But yeah, so as soon as I got to that description of you spilling your drink, I was like, oh, we are kindred spirits. I was telling you before the show that one thing that I could really relate to is that like how as a champion for sex positivity, which suddenly we have found ourselves in this similar position, how the community is not necessarily embracing of that. And I told you there's some passages in here that I'm going to read to myself as I go to bed every night to make me feel better, about all the kind of hate that we started to get for being so open about this. So you've been doing this now for 30 years.
If you think it's hateful for you should have seen it 30
I
years
can
ago.
only imagine, yeah. So, 30 years you've been a champion for sex positivity. How has that changed from 94 to 2024?
Oh, it was very uncool in 1994. That was a time when AIDS was still killing our queer ancestors. Being sex positive back then, we were really frowned upon by our community. Even our own leadership. At the time, they were like, we should blend in. We're just like everybody else. We're not sick. And that was the message sent to us from within our own community. And when I came out, I was like, no, fuck that.
Yeah.
I'm not like everybody else. I just want to be me. And my husband and I kind of started, Nasty Pig was just sort of kind of a rallying cry to reclaim that crossroads of queer identity and sexual positivity. We were so unpopular. Nobody liked us for a really long time. It took 20 years before we even began to be remotely cool. But we're always cool. I knew it would take a while. But it was tough, but we stuck to our guns, look, we keep getting made. We're necessary to, I feel like, I always felt like it's, we shouldn't just be tolerated or accepted. We're necessary to the fabric of society. We keep being born. So we should celebrate that and dive into that,
I saw a coworker with a Nasty Pig t-shirt on at work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like,
that's right.
I fucking love this brand because I know, and he knows that I know, but no one else around us has to know.
We call it a private nod in a public world.
Yeah.
What's really interesting is we made our logo as a way. Initially, we were like, oh, it'll be cool to cruise, and just get that, that exact thing. But then we began to hear from some of our queer customers in smaller towns, and they began to tell us it's not actually about cruising. They feel so isolated, but when somebody spots them and nods, it makes them feel safe. And that is such a fucking blessing.
Absolutely.
To know that we can do that for people is such a, our queer siblings in these smaller places. We're so fortunate here in New York. So fortunate. You don't realize how different it gets just a few miles from where we are. So, don't ever take it for granted, people.
It's funny, you said there's a passage in the book where you just talk about, and it really moved me because I feel the same way, so much about how privileged we are to be where we are. I think you say this from the Pines. I sat on the back deck by myself in the warmth of the shining summer sun. I couldn't believe how lucky I was to be right there in that house with the man I loved and our amazing group of friends. But my luck didn't stop there. I was fortunate enough to be living in New York City and to be vacationing in the Pines. I was getting ready to go to a party on one of the most beautiful beaches in the world where I would dance and openly kiss my boyfriend and embrace the man I loved. I began to realize I'd been blessed with tremendous privilege. There were queer people living in abject poverty, literally afraid of having walls toppled in on them by their own families as punishment for being themselves. By nothing more than a cosmic roll of the dice, I got to have this life.
Yeah.
And I just thought that really moved me because I also try to appreciate every time I'm on Fire Island, every time I'm walking the streets of New York City, yes, I get to live this life.
Yeah, there are people who don't have hot water or food, a lot of people.
Yeah.
I just think it's always important just realize just how fortunate we are. And it doesn't mean that we don't experience hardship and have tough times, but in a global perspective, it gives me good perspective to look down and see just how green the grass is beneath my feet.
Absolutely. Can you talk a little bit about why sex positivity specifically is important?
Because I love dicks.
Keeping it simple, yeah.
I think that in general, Western society doesn't exactly have sex figured out.
Right.
I feel like we experience the world with our five senses. We taste food, we look at art, we listen to music. I'm not just going to listen to one song and eat one bowl of porridge and just like look at one piece of art. I'm going to do a lot. So we have this sense of touch, and we've been blessed with this way to express it with each other.
Yeah.
So like, why is it such a fucking drama?
Yeah.
Like, let's just kind of like so that's why I think, personally, I've always been very sex positive, because I just feel like we got it a little wrong that people are so afraid of it.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a beautiful way to express something with two people or more people. And so, I've just always felt like, it's like a little backwards. A lot backwards, actually.
Yeah, I mean, you're preaching to the choir here, but yeah.
A lot backwards.
Yeah.
I would happily eat a bowl of porridge with you.
Well played. Well played.
I say that all the time, too. It's just like the three of us together, each have partners who we love and care about very, very deeply. But do you want to eat lasagna every night for dinner for the next 40 years? Like, that to me sounds crazy.
Right, but that being said, I've been with my husband for 31 years. He literally took my virginity. So, like, clearly we're doing something right, and the fact that we let, it's not like we also don't have this like completely open relationship. It's, you're going to find your boundaries by crossing them. If you respect each other and just like hold on tight, that's what worked for us, And good design dictates form should follow function. If the function of a relationship is love, let the form find its own way,
One thing that we talk about a lot is how at the beginning you might have certain rules, expectations, boundaries that kind of fall away over time. And it sounds like, because your book takes place in a very specific amount of time.
Yeah.
And when you two are out together, it sounds like there's, like, together as boyfriends at gay clubs in the 90s. It sounds like there's a little bit of cruising, a little bit of kissing. When did you two actually start to talk about having sex with other people?
Like a year after we met.
Mm-hmm.
So he was the first guy who ever fucked me. And so like, we both knew it wasn't going to be the last, and it definitely was very far from the last. But yeah, after like a year, we hooked up with our neighbor and just kind of like just kind of went with it as it went along, and we've just always kind of come back to each other. We get to live as free gay artists, which thanks to our union. So that's such a powerful thing. Yeah, being free and artists there's nothing like it. So we're pretty bonded in that way. But yeah, since then we just keep finding, like I said, you find your boundaries by crossing them, and look at that man.
Yeah,
I know.
Beautiful.
He's amazing.
We also talk a lot about the distinction between, having sex with people who aren't necessarily our primary partners and having romantic relationships with people who aren't necessarily our primary partners. Do you have romantic relationships with people other than each other?
No, just me and my man.
Yeah.
Oh, well, look at Randy over there. No, it's just me and him. We're not, for us, that's always been just what works for us. But that doesn't mean like, look, we make friends, one of the great things I think about being gay, clearly you can have all different types of sex, but, sometimes you can meet someone and just like have this, I call it took me 10 years in my poet's brain to figure out the words for it, but I call it fleeting intimacy. You know how like you can meet a guy and hook up and just get naked and just like be really honest with someone.
Yeah.
You're there for just a few hours and then you disappear, but then you can come back to it 2 years later. And I think that's such a gift. And you can have this moment. And I think that's a really powerful gift that we get to experience. Not all the time. I'll be pressed up in a back room too, but like,
First of all, a few hours. We talk about the ideal hookup time is 20 minutes, but
you haven't met me.
But as a dad of kids, I always compare it to imaginative play. And like when I am on these hookups, that I suddenly can just put myself. It's like a play date, and I just put myself in this place where I can imagine the romance, but it ends when it ends, and it doesn't. But I love that, the fleeting intimacy. I think it's a similar concept. Yeah,
I've met most of my closest friends. I've met by sleeping with them.
Well, my husband I met by through Grindr, but we moved to a proper first date first, where I spilled my drink.
Where are you meeting men now? Like, how are you still going out in the way that's described in the book? And if so, where? In addition to that, how are you meeting men these days?
So I don't really go out that much, although I did go to Honey Dijon.
I was going to say, I just saw that on your Instagram, and like having just read the book and then seeing this image of Kevin Albion.
Gorgeous, gorgeous, what a set. But,
yeah.
So I don't really go out that much anymore. So after 30 years of very hard work, when my husband and I met, Nasty Pig we built it together. It was my dream. And he invested his life in my dream, and his dream was to have a house on Fire Island. And after 30 years, we got that man his dream house. So when we are on Fire Island, we tend to it's very easy for us to go out and do a dance and stuff. But that's summer we get a little more wild, and the winter we kind of hibernate. So. And how do I meet guys? It's Fire Island, please.
Yeah.
You can't swing at that cat without getting fucked on Fire Island.
I love that phrase in that context. Congratulations on the Fire Island house.
We've worked very hard, and it's really beautiful to be able to, to just set a goal like that and to make to make his dream come true. I get to. I wake up, and then he wakes up and he goes in the pool, and I bring him breakfast in the pool, and it's just oh my God, it's pretty powerful.
Is that a new?
He doesn't. He lives in our pool.
But the house is that
the house we bought it in 2023.
Amazing.
Yeah, it really is. I'm very proud. I'm very proud of 30 years of work and being able to do something like that. It's a monumental accomplishment.
Congratulations, that's amazing.
Yeah, I'm proud of you.
I'm proud of me too.
Would you like to ask David the question we
Oh,
ask our
yeah.
guests?
We ask all of our guests the following question. David, what is your daddy issue?
So I think my daddy issue would be, my queer ancestors, almost all of them passed away. I feel like we are so fortunate now to have generations of queer people, and we have an opportunity to share queer generational knowledge. And so my real issue is at this time when there's such an incredible opportunity, 60s, 50s, 40s, 30s, 20s, and I see our community fragmenting for the first time. And really, so I guess I don't know if you call it an issue, but I really want us to figure out how to hold on to each other.
Yeah.
The rights that we have, 30 years ago, 2 generations, we didn't have. They're a privilege, and as we can see, they're already being taken away. So I'm hoping we can find some commonality where sometimes I see, for the first time, I feel like I've seen our community fracture. And maybe that's wonderful because there are so many of us.
Right.
There are so many of us that maybe that's something I should celebrate. I don't know, but I ponder it.
Yeah.
But I hope that when push comes to shove, we can all rally around the same side. So I guess that's my thing. I want to learn from younger queer people, and I want to offer what I know. And I'm fascinated by this idea that we can actually just pass stuff down and bring stuff forward.
Right.
So, I don't know if that's an issue, but, it's
No, I think it's really
but
important. You've talked about learning from when you were at work.
Oh, yeah. So relative to that, I spent 3.5 years at my corporate job as the co-lead for our queer employee resource group. And I learned from younger people in that group to be more comfortable with the moniker queer because it was much more all-encompassing than the catch-all that I was using at work, which was gay this, gay that. And they would say to me, you're gay and that's cool, but we're not. And we're all part of the same group. Yeah. And it was really cool to hear that, right? Thank you so much. I am a better person for it, and my understanding is much more ample and broad now. And I'm sorry for inadvertently excluding you by identifying so strictly. Yeah. I feel very lucky to come into contact with so many young queer people at my job where, in terms of us meeting together, being in the same places, where's the possibility for that? Do you see even these spaces where this intergenerational knowledge transfer can happen?
So the space that happens for me is often through my business. some of the models we bring in. Fred and I are big supporters of younger queer artists. We give our studio space away to authors to do readings. So we get to meet a lot of people through the business, is one space. We invite people to our house on Fire Island when we just meet people. We open our home to younger people to just to have these interactions. There's so little room for nuance and actual conversation in our society. We're getting everything blasted on our phones.
Yeah.
And having a wonderful long-form conversation with somebody who may or may not have differing opinions and things is a wonderful thing to do. I encourage all of you to have conversations with people because you find there's a lot of commonality. So that's where I do it, and I put myself out there. I actively look to meet people, and also if I see somebody wearing our stuff. I mean, it's always humbling. It never gets old seeing somebody wear our stuff. It's like the customer. You have a gazillion choices, and if somebody chooses to spend their money on something we made to this day, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's fucking unbelievable. It's amazing. So I'll go up to someone and I'll be like, oh my God, I own this company. I thank you so much. And I'll start a conversation just to get to know that human.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Brian and I are waiting patiently, but cannot wait to see Dads and Daddies merch in the wild. I have good friends who've sent me pictures oh, this guy at the gym was wearing your, wearing the tank top, or I was on the train and I saw the tote bag. And I can't imagine the sort of gratification that comes with seeing your work manifest even now.
Yeah. Well, when we started, Fred and I had, we quit our jobs and we had no income other than this we started this with $50. And when someone would come into our little tiny store and spend $100, you're literally putting food in our bellies. And I never lose sight. Money is this representation of our energy. It's so that we could live in a barter. So it's in place of a barter system. And somebody's creating, they're using their energy to make money, and then they're giving that money to us. It's incredible. You could choose anything in the world and you choose me. That's amazing. It's humbling every fucking time. Every time.
Tell me about the process of writing this book. I was so impressed with your attention to detail. It was so evocative of this very specific time and place. And again, having just moved to the city at a similar time, going to some of these places, it brought me so back there. I was so in awe of your memory of some of these moments. So how long have you been working on the book?
So I started writing the book in August of 2022, and I finished it April of 2023.
Wow.
I would run the company Monday through Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I would go. One of my mentors, the man I would call my guiding light. He happens to have a studio apartment that he bought in our building that he used as like a pied-a-terre. He would come and he bought it with someone else, but neither of them were using it neither of them could use it for a year, and they couldn't rent it out. So I'd go to this little studio, and I would just for 3 days write frantically. And my poor husband sometimes I would come home and I'd be crying and I'd be a mess, but I wrote furiously.
Yeah.
I didn't want to have a ghostwriter, and obviously, I shouldn't say because I always wrote poetry. I never published anything, so prose was a challenge. But that's how I did it. I mapped it out. My COO, Scott Wise, helped me map out the stories I wanted to tell, and then I just wrote furiously.
It's very impressive.
Crazy.
The attention to detail to these situations and experiences that happened 30 years ago. I said to you when you walked in here tonight, I felt like I'm your good friends, and don't know me at all. You really let us into your life, and it's really a beautiful experience reading your book.
Thank you. Yeah, I just kind of went and did it, and didn't really realize, I just let it flow, and then when it was finally published and my mom was I'm reading it, I was oh. But my mom, who is an avid reader, she reads all the time. She was I learned a lot about you, David. She's I learned a lot about you, a lot of stuff that, I'm probably going to tell your dad. He doesn't have to read it. She was but you wrote a beautiful book that made me cry. And that's the praise from my mom. She's the critic I care about the most.
That's amazing. How long? So the book takes place essentially over what?
Like 93 to 95,
Yeah.
96, like in that 95.
Did you decide? At what point did you decide like that's the time frame you're going to focus on?
When I got the book deal, there's a lot of there were some people who were advising me to write. Like, there's this big market for like founder stories, like founders of businesses. Like, everybody wants to know founders. But I wanted to tell a love story. I feel like an authentic queer love story. Like, that's something that we need more in the world than another fucking business book. But
the fact that your business was born out of love is also very unique and special and very cool.
So I figured that would be an interesting time. I think there's a lot of interest in New York in the 90s. It's just a very, it's just a time period that's been getting a lot of.
Well, that was another thing I said to Judson on the ride over here, that I'm so accustomed to stories about AIDS in our community taking place in the 80s.
Right.
And for this to take place in the 90s when I was living here and largely oblivious to so much of what you were talking about, that was so fascinating to me.
It was, AIDS was still taking us down, but at the same time, we were struggling to like I said, there was a small group of us. And we were like out to fight for like our queer identity. We wanted to bring it back. We didn't want to get lost to time. And it was just this group of artists and kind of free thinkers. And, it was really, there weren't a lot of us, but we were really dedicated to just being fucking queens and just like, carrying and bringing it back and kind of feeling this energy. And, it was very underground. It was small. When I went to that Honey Dijon performance, I went with my COO, Scott Wise, who's 32, and Honey was playing, I've known Honey since she was also at Sound Factory.
Yeah.
And I knew she would be playing some of the songs from that time. Trump had just won, and he saw, and he saw it, and she was really delivering this set. And he said to me, it was gorgeous in there. And he was like, is this what was like at Sound Factory? And I was like, yeah, this is kind of like the vibe, because he had read the book. He kind of helped coach me through it. And he looked at me and he's like, it's so fucking sad. He said, I was like, yeah, we would go out, we would shake off the bigotry and the hatred and the transphobia and the homophobia and the racism and the misogyny. And he was like, it really sucks. He's like, it feel like nothing has changed. And I was like, no. There were a couple hundred of us back then. There are 5,000 of us dancing with our hands in the air now. Yeah. There are more of us. We're everywhere. And that's something that's so important to realize. Is like, when you get scared, like I don't know if, some of you probably are like shaking from what's gone on, but I will tell you, we have fought this fight before and we have won with a much smaller army. So please just, hold on to your strength.
I was so touched I fantasize about quitting my job all the fucking time, and I really do. And I was so touched by both of these separate but colliding stories of you two becoming full-time employees of Nasty Pig. It's described in the book, but I would love to hear it live. Like, what was that feeling like for you when you were like, you know what, babe? Like, I quit too. It was
really exciting, but we also like rolled change to pay the rent, and I hoard myself to. There's a chapter, I won't give it away, but it was scary. It was scary, but it's also like it's also it is scary to go for your dreams, but like at the same time, like reincarnation may be real, but in case it's not, I'm going to do it in this lifetime. You know what I'm saying? I'm just going to go for it. So. It was a little terrifying, but also we just kind of were like, what do we have to lose, So we just we turned $1 into $2, worked hard, and just kind of followed our dreams. And it's, like I said, it took a long time. Fred and I, it took a really long time for us to get to where we are. But only over the past few years, we've had some decent financial success, to be honest. Although there was an Instagram fucking some comments, nonsense going on, and somebody wrote about us, you would think $1 billion company like Nasty Pig. I mean, somebody out there thinks we're $1 billion company. Like, what? I mean, but like, how crazy is that?
Yeah.
Like, so, but it was, we quit our jobs. Like, fuck it. Right? Fuck it. He was miserable. He hated my man used to stay up till 6 a.m. because he didn't want to fall asleep to wake up to go to the job he hated. I was like, quit.
Yeah.
Just quit. We'll make it work. We'll make it work. And then I did the same. You know, sometimes you just gotta go off the cliff to see if you can fly.
Yeah, I'm gonna make my husband read the book so that he is accepting of the fact when I tell him I'm quitting my job, because I also would love to do that.
That's exactly why I brought it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Bruce,
it was cool.
Toby, we're quitting our jobs.
It was really cool to read it from those two stories specifically, because knowing the success of the brand, even as you describe it, rather recent financial success, it had me rooting for you, but already knowing the end, right? I was like, oh, this became a successful company, and how awesome of them to quit and support each other to make it happen. It wasn't written so explicitly, but it's just like, I just felt so powerfully, like how much you believed in your dream that it would happen. Yeah,
I was born with blind confidence. Like, that is one thing that
I am very envious of that.
I was born with blind confidence. Like, you know, I pursue my dreams relentlessly, and I just don't put a time limit on them. I'm like, I'm going to do this. And then I think
that's amazing. I think it's very
out.
admirable and enviable. It took me until I turned 50 to do what we're doing now. And I mean, we were talking in the car on the way here. I wanted to be a performer all my life, and this is my New York debut. It took me until now to figure out, like, oh no, you can actually do this. It didn't make sense to me all these years, like watching people on talk shows and talking about like pursuing their dreams. But yes, you actually can.
Yeah, just do. You know, when we were starting a business, the very first thing I sold, a pair of these goggles we made to some club kids at Limelight. If you starting a business, like, people are like, oh my God, like, I have to do this and I have to set up a website. No, starting a business is like, hi, I have a water. I paid $1 for it. I'm selling it to you for $1.25. That person buys it. You have started a business.
Yeah,
like,
just do what you want to do.
Demystify it.
Yeah.
Demystify it. It's not, don't let all that nonsense start in your way. We knew nothing. Neither of us had any business experience, no training. We figured it out as we went along. Demystify it. If you have a passion about something, don't get bogged down in the details. If we knew what we were going to get into, we never would have done it.
Exactly
Ever.
that, yeah.
Thank God we didn't know.
Yeah.
Thank God we didn't know.
We have a number of great Go Ask Your Dad questions from our audience that I want to get to. But before we do, I want to talk about the title of the book. So you and I are both Jewish men.
Yes.
And so, you know, I personally feel like I have a pretty strong relationship with God, and I've talked about it now and again on the podcast. But, you know, so this concept of Sodomy Gods, once I got to that part of the book and understood what it meant, kind of frightened me, but at the same time, I like really embraced it and love it. So can you kind of explain what the Sodomy Gods are and how you view them?
It was just as I was going through all this stuff, and I was going through this like magical kind of journey with my life, with my man, and I was just like quitting. I was freeing myself, and so it felt like I just felt like so powerful, and something. There was something sacred, and I just like began to like. I was like, my gods are the Sodomy Gods. That's who I'm praying to. Like that's who's guiding me right now. I'm following that energy, you know, of just it was just something that I used to. I mean, it was serious at the time, but my publisher actually suggested that we name the book. I was going to call it Little Pig, and he was like, and he was like, David, I think we should call it Sodomy Gods. And I was like, okay, you know, I mean, why not another name that's going to stand in my way for the rest of my life? So, I mean, Nasty Pig, Sodomy Gods, I'm already on a fucking roll, so, you know, but we did get it, got written up in the New York Times. Andy Cohen talked about it on Watch What Happens Live. So,
I love it.
Do you still think about them?
What? About what?
The Sodomy Gods.
Yeah, of course. Of course. I cry like 3 or 4 times a week. Just, you know. Yeah, I mean, when it's really just a narrative. When I talk about the Sodomy Gods, it's really just like giving yourself over to this energy of like, I don't know, just kind of like shaking off society and a lot of the nonsense that gets put upon us, and really just releasing yourself to a different energy and just like trusting it.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of a metaphor for like, the forces that guide me. So
the reason I asked the question is because I struggle, because I feel like there is crucial importance to sex positivity.
Yeah.
And yet there's a part of me, this like good Jewish boy who's been, raised through the conservative synagogue, that feels that my God doesn't approve of sex positivity. And so this idea of these like sodomy gods was so empowering to me. And I thought that, well, wow, maybe those really are my gods, or at least complementary to the God that I believe in. And it was so this thought that like every time something good happened to you in a very sexual sense, or in one of the at Sound Factory or in a club, that was like that the sodomy gods were looking down on you was really powerful to me.
Yeah, and it's not just like I don't see separations between sex and business and this that. For me, it's just a thing. It's just a life.
Yeah,
and it was just my way of kind of like if I was looking up at the sky and just like asking for strength. I'm not. That's just kind of who I guess was up there for me. It's
these
just,
gods that were.
Yeah, the guys that were
with
kind
what you
of
were doing,
running this whole journey that I was on of like, Nasty Pig and all this madness. And it just made sense. So I was like, yeah, Sodomy Gods. That's you guys and you girls. Like all of them.
I love it. Well, it's very
All
empowering for me. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
And it's also demystifying, sodomy laws and like the word sodomy really means anything but a man and a woman having missionary sex. So it's oral sex, anything between a man, a woman. So it's also kind of like also shaking off, like taking this word was used to actually put us in jail and reclaiming it, like reclaiming it and shaking off whatever it is, it's just a word, it's just a word. It's a tool. Language is a tool. It's how we use it. Like Instagram or capitalism, they're just tools. They're not inherently good or bad. It's what we do with them.
I love it. Well, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for your
Thank
book.
you, guys.
Thank you so much, David. It's been an absolute pleasure.
You're not going anywhere there.
Okay,
I'm
not done.
You got homework.
We always
guys.
end our episodes with Go Ask Your Dad, our advice segment. And because we are here doing a live show, we've asked our audience to submit questions, and we have a bunch. And so we're going to take a quick break for those of you listening, not here with us in the room, and we'll come back and do some Go Ask Your Dad questions with David Lauterstein.
Woo!
Welcome back to our advice segment, Go Ask Your Dad. Just as a reminder, Brian and David and I are not mental health professionals. We are not financial planners. We are just queer men with a long, loving, lived history of outness.
Yeah.
And we would love to hear your questions and offer our take on them.
So this obviously is a very special experience for us to be in the room with all of you, and so we've solicited questions from the audience, and we have a bunch of them. So we're going to do that. It's a little bit different than our usual Go Ask Your Dad. But if you are listening, or even if you're here in the room with us and want to submit a question in future, you can always submit a question to us at dadsanddaddies@gmail.com. You can. Bruce is soliciting more questions, but Bruce, I think we're good. Thank you. You can DM us on Instagram at Dads and Daddies Pod. That's also our handle on TikTok and Blue Sky. And we get very turned on by voice memos that we can play on the pod. And if we use your question, you will get a Go Ask Your Dad cap. All right, so we have a stack of Go Ask Your Dads here, and the three of us are going to address these questions. The first one. My boyfriend wants to incorporate daddy-son dynamics into our relationship. He wants to be daddy, but I also feel like a daddy. Any tips on how to make it work both ways?
Call me.
Typically also Justin's answer.
Happy to teach you either of those roles, yes.
But any advice for a relationship?
You know what? Honestly, I have found that I have learned so much about being a great daddy by being a good, obedient son to another daddy. I have watched how they role play. I have listened to what they've said. I've looked how they've moved their body. By taking on the son role, there's a lot to learn from the daddy just by paying attention. So my recommendation is honestly for both of you to be great daddies. Try both. You'll learn a lot. And call David.
Anything you want to add, David?
I mean, as long as you're not totally opposed to it, try anything once.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, worst comes to worst, you don't like it. It's, you know, I mean, that would be my advice. You know, just try it. But if if you don't enjoy it, then figure something else out. Find some, you know, I'm all for it. I've tried everything a couple times.
I love it. So if you are willing to identify yourself, you're welcome to walk up to Toby and get a Go Ask Your... Oh, there you go. Amazing. All right. Our next Go Ask Your Dad question. This question is for the dad, which is me. I feel like all the questions are for you. When your children were very young, was your marriage still open? Did any break happen in outside hookups? Did it pick back up or just straight hooking up, no stopping since the jump? That's funny. So, you know, Toby and I opened up our marriage about almost 2 years into the relationship. So a few years before we had kids. Or maybe not a few years, but a little before we had kids. And I kind of feel like as we have become more comfortable ourselves as sexual beings, it has become more frequent. I don't think it has ever been affected necessarily by the having of kids. I just think that, like, as our lives have evolved, and maybe that has something to do with the kids in terms of, like, just the time that we have, the time that we can break away, you know, that, but I don't think it was like, we never spoke about putting it on pause. There was a moment that had nothing to do with the kids, it had more to do with a certain pandemic that happened in the world, that there were some assumptions made about it being put on pause. But here's the thing about assumptions. You may have heard this. Assumptions make an ass out of you and me. And so it turned out that, you know, we were on different pages about how much of a pause we had taken in the pandemic. But, you know, I don't think it's about the kids as much as it was about just like who we are as, even to be totally honest, and I think I've maybe said this before, but even since this podcast started happening and airing, the way we've talked about it in our relationship and the way I think we've acted upon it in our relationship has changed. The answer is I think we've become sluttier over the years, but it has nothing to do with the kids. Okay, and this is for all three of us. How does it feel to bare your souls and secrets to strangers? I mean, you just put out a book that like is very. And you just said your mom just read it, but not that she's a stranger, but yeah. How did it feel, David, to put yourself out there like that?
How did it feel to put myself out? You know, I don't really, like I said before, I didn't really think about it. I tend to run towards something, and then when I get there, I kind of elbow my way in, and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing here? So I just kind of, I've always felt that there's beauty in the truth, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like, that's something I learned. I was fortunate enough to grow up in New York City in the 80s as a poet. 1980, this beautiful music called hip hop came out, and I learned so much from hip hop culture in the 80s, where these people were coming on the radio and they were putting out the truth, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and it inspired me so much. So I think the truth is beautiful. And if you put yourself out there honestly and live honestly, then I think people gravitate towards it.
Yeah.
Authenticity is refreshing.
For me, there's something that we say in sobriety: you are only as sick as your secrets. And I have found that the deepest, darkest things I have shared with anybody, whether publicly with strangers or with my husband or friends, I've never been the only one, right? I've never been the only one that was in that circumstance. So I sort of look at it, I mean, clearly I like an audience, and in the same way, I love the act of service. I think sharing this kind of stuff in front of strangers helps people feel more comfortable and relatable.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, many of you have probably heard our origin story as a podcast, which is that I ran into Judson. Judson and I have run in a kind of similar circle of friends for only a few years, but never really had a one-on-one relationship, and then ran into each other on the subway in December, and I had a hookup that day that kind of went a little south, and I was feeling bad about it, and I just knew that Judson was somebody I could open up to about it, and we ended up on the subway together, this ride from where we live in deep Brooklyn up into the city, so it was about half an hour, and we had this really incredible conversation that I just felt like, leaving it really moved me, and it stuck with me for a long time, and I thought, I feel like other people would like to hear these kinds of conversations, because I feel like, I really don't mean to be patting myself on the back or anything, but I think that there's something about allowing people to hear these conversations and realize that, you're not alone in hearing and feeling these things, you're not alone in having these thoughts, and, I feel that my husband and I have achieved this really beautiful marriage, and it's so largely based in the freedom that we give each other. And I just really want to help spread that word. So when we're sitting here in front of a microphone, I forget the fact that there are mothers from my school listening in. And I just think about those gay guys who I really imagined would also, we have very close gay friends who I know want to be talking about these kinds of things, but don't. And so, I when the microphone's in front of me, I forget about the fact that the principal of my school may eventually find out about this, my kid's school. So I just ignore that, and I think about the good that I'm doing, and hopefully spreading the word about how much love you're expressing by giving your partner freedom.
You said you want to quit your job, right?
Oh my God, yes.
You're lining it up.
Yes. All right. So again, if you ask one of these questions and you are willing to identify yourself, Toby there will hand you a Go Ask Your Dad cap. Have you ever considered an episode about the other guy with a single guest talking about what it's like to navigate the apps/hooking up with dating in a world full of partnered/open men?
Drew King, host of the podcast Into the Mud, knows that I want him for this exact topic.
Yeah.
So if you
he submitted a Go Ask Your Dad about
if you
this.
see him around town, let him know that we're looking.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, it's a really interesting question. We've talked about this on the Go Ask Your Dad that Drew submitted. I think it's really worth going into further. We recently posted a TikTok of Judson talking about how he approaches hooking up differently with single men versus married men. And it's gotten a tremendous amount of discussion in the comments, which I think is great. I think it shows that it's a hot topic and something necessary to be talked about. We'll try to make that happen.
I will say, as someone in a relationship, when I'm out there, I will tell, if somebody's flirting with me, I tell them very quickly. If you're in a couple, don't be a fucking piece of shit and lead somebody on
Absolutely.
all night.
No,
Say it early.
Give
that person enough information so that they can, because people are out there. Somebody might be just looking for something that night, but there are people actively looking for a relationship. I think it's really important to understand that if you're in a couple and you're out there, I tell people within 5 or 10 minutes. 5 minutes if somebody's flirting with me, I'm like, look, I'm a married guy. If you're looking for something else, I don't want to waste your time.
Yeah.
And I think it's really an important responsibility, because I have a lot of single friends, and this happens, and it's just, so I'm not a single guy. If there are guys who are in couples and hear this, just realize that there are human beings out there, and if you take someone home, you're then at the end of the night, you're like, oh yeah, no, I have someone. You don't know what that human being is experiencing with you right then. So let them make the choice. You don't choose that for them.
I think that's amazing. All right, this is a good question. David, I'm gonna let you peek at it first.
Was that for me?
Well, it's for all of us, I think. It's, do you want to fuck me? I would like to be fucked by you as a bottom, but, you know.
I'm looking around the room, and I don't care who wrote this. The answer is yes.
Yeah.
It was me.
Yes, 100 times.
Give that man a hat. Give that man a hat.
Yeah. See you right after the show.
In your opinion, how does your work help queer folks to feel both connected and joyful in their bodies again?
So, I just say what you want about fashion, but it's the only art form that pretty much everybody in the world wakes up and participates with. You may not listen to music, but every day you kind of get dressed. And the interesting thing about fashion is that, if you can dress somebody up and spin them around and let them look in the mirror and see themselves differently, it's a really cool thing to just make somebody feel gorgeous. At Nasty Pig, one of the early things we would call ourselves, like in New York City, there's the DOT, the Department of Transportation. We would call ourselves the Department of Transformation. Like, I want to put you in a pair of chaps and spin you around and be like, that's you, girl. Like, yes. Now go out there and get laid. Like, it's so, yes. So that's
Not a question, just a thank you note for a funny story, so thank you. David, tell us about your business. Is it only in the gay community, or will you be selling in the Gap?
We're actually owned by the Gap. I hate getting fucked in the ass. I just do it as a marketing ploy. So just so that the guys at the Gap will think that I'm doing a really authentic job. No, we don't. We're not in the Gap. We have customers. We have customers who aren't just gay men. We have lesbians, bisexual. We have straight customers, men and women. Majority gay. Majority gay. Well, no, it's for anybody. Look, we always say, we always say if we're here for you when you're ready for us. When you're ready for Nasty Pig, I don't care who the fuck you are. If you're ready for us, we're ready for you.
Amazing. All right, if not New York City, where would you say a homosexual person could experience a similar lifestyle?
Nowhere. New York's the best.
New York is the best.
Sorry, I'm a native New Yorker.
Where?
No, I don't know. Where else? Nowhere. No. There's great gay scenes in a lot of other cities. LA is popping. I think Berlin is, is totally happening. So, but it's New York. She's my girl.
I've had good gay times in a lot of different cities, but like David, I feel like New York is so unique in its access to the sheer quantity of queer people. It's hard I've not seen that duplicated anywhere. But I do, on the flip side, there are plenty of places where you could live comfortably with your boyfriend, with your boyfriends, with your girlfriend. To me, it's just cities. I think it would be hard to do this in Ironton, Ohio. So just think cities.
Yeah, I think we saw that on November 5th, right? All the blue spots were in cities where people know how to live amongst diverse communities. I will give a special shout out to Cologne, Germany, which is where I proposed to my husband because
shout out to Cologne.
It rivals Berlin as being the gay capital of Germany, and it's a lovely little town. Are you worried? This is our last Go Ask Your Dad question from the audience. Are you worried about gay marriage at the federal level, and what can we do?
So here's something interesting about gay marriage. If they were to dissolve gay marriage, there are millions of contracts, mortgages. Think the amount of chaos it would unleash. While I think it could be clearly anything can happen, but you also have to think about it would create a lot of legal chaos in this country to do that. So it would be I don't know. Am I worried? I'm concerned about a little bit of everything right now. I'm concerned about a little bit of everything. But I think it would be very interesting because you know, Fred and I have 2 mortgages.
Right.
Well, now what happens?
Yeah.
Now what do we suddenly like not own these things?
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see how stuff like that plays out when you look at it, you know. But you know, hey, some people in that movement are out for our blood. So you know.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I do think it's smart to protect yourself, right? Like, you know, my husband and I have 2 kids via surrogacy, one of each of our genetics. We were convinced that I should do the second parent adoption of the kid that is his genetics, but we never went through with it with the second one because it just felt like, well, why? But now we think like, well, maybe we should actually pursue that.
Yeah.
You know, there are things advice I've heard that, you know, if you have a will, make sure the will actually names the person as opposed to just the role they play in your life, because we don't know what rights are going to be taken away. So, you know, certainly find yourself an attorney or somebody who is on our side who can like advise you in the right way about these things. You know, I think move to a state that's going to protect you like New York. But
there's in a lot of states, they are working on enshrining a lot of things like actively in states like New York to protect the residents here.
Yeah.
So, you know, clearly if they overturn it at the federal level, you know,
there are states that will protect you. Yeah.
I'm going to shout out my husband really quickly, who actually works in this space, as you've described.
Yeah.
And I will recommend to all of you, get over your fear of death and get a will.
Yeah.
Get a fucking will. Even if you are a renter, collect a list of the things that you own and where you want them to go and get it down on paper, period.
Well, David, thank you so
Thank you, David.
You guys, this man is an icon. His husband right there is an icon. You're in like the presence of royalty. David, thank you so much.
Of course, my pleasure.
This was amazing. You guys, this was our first live show, and you guys were here for it. And like, thank you so much. I'm like, this is beyond. I can't even. I hope you all had a good time. I hope listening at home, you've enjoyed this. I do want to remind you, the holidays are upon us, and the Dads and Daddies store is now open for the first time in a very long, ever. So if you're in the room with us, there are QR codes all over the place. If you're not, it's dadsanddaddys.com/store. And I assume that the people on your Christmas and Hanukkah and all the lists also want some Nasty Pigs. So make sure that when you're shopping at Dads and Daddies, you're also then going over to Nasty Pig and shopping there. At Dads and Daddies, we have t-shirts, tank tops, a couple different caps, 3 different tote bags, a keychain, and our brand new towels, which were inspired by tonight. So you can see them around the room. David, thank you so much.
Thank you, David.
This was amazing.
Thank you, everybody.
I want to thank again our fairy godfather, Daniel Nardicio.
Yeah, Daniel.
I mean, I love this man like I can never express. Taylor, Keaton, Antonio, Joao, everyone at Redeye and the Cockpit has been it's just been a dream. And I think we're going to do this again and again and again. So please come back and tell your friends, and we'll fill the room even more. Thank you all. And for those of you listening at home, we will see you in a week.